You look at the top teams in college basketball. I think there are 7 teams that are unanimously in the national championship running. At least nearly every single advanced analytics website has these teams in the top 7, varying orders. You've got Michigan, Duke, Arizona, Houston, Illinois, Florida, and Iowa State. The interesting thing is I can name you a personnel weakness with all of those teams. Meaning if they don't win a national championship this year, it's going to be because this thing happened. Michigan, 32% from 3 since the start of the new year. They've been ice cold from there. Duke, same exact problem as Michigan, also 32% from 3 since the start of the new year. Arizona's making just 5 threes per game. Houston is 130th in scoring. They're 249th in defensive rebounding. Illinois is outside the top 70 in least points allowed per possession because they force just 7 turnovers per game. That's last in the whole sport. Florida is shooting 29% from 3. Their 2 starting guards are shooting a combined 23% from 3, and they take 10 threes per game. Then we have Iowa State. And this is the team we're going to talk about today. Iowa State, like Michigan, Duke, Houston, and Arizona, is in the top 5 in the country for least points allowed per possession. But here's the kicker. Out of those 7 teams that I mentioned, none of them are in the top 60 in three-point percentage as a team, except for one, Iowa State. Iowa State is not only in the top 60, they are shooting 40% from 3. They're 7th in Division I in that category. So you may think, okay, Iowa State probably has other flaws. Sure. Well, like every team in there, they're awesome from 2, 57%. They can score inside very well. They are in the top 15 in the nation in assist-turnover ratio. And unlike Illinois, they're a great shooting team, like Illinois is, but they can also force turnovers. They force 15 turnovers per game, top 20 in the sport. So based on that logic, you're probably thinking, okay, Iowa State is the greatest college basketball team of these last 20 years. But instead, they're not. They're a really good team. I think they can win the whole thing. I think they're a great team, but they're not the overwhelming favorite. No one would consider them the favorite, except maybe those in Ames, Iowa. Why? Well, this is where it gets so interesting. Because Iowa State, there's something there that we have never seen before in the history of college basketball, and I'll get to it. Looking at Michigan's one loss this year, we'll look at the top. They lost to Wisconsin. Okay, why? Because they shot 8 for 26 from 3. They have a tendency to do that. They lost, their one game they lost is because they went ice cold from 3. Looking at Arizona's one loss, well, 2 losses now, but their most recent loss was to Texas Tech. 4 for 16 from 3 against Texas Tech in that game. Well, they have a tendency to do that. Iowa State has dropped under 70 points just 2 times this year. And those 2 times that's happened, they lost to Kansas by 21. They lost to TCU, a bubble team, who they have, frankly, no business losing. What happened in those games? In those games, Iowa State shot a combined 14 of 49 from 3, 28%. So, again, the interesting thing is with Michigan and Arizona, those lackluster offensive performances, the reason why they lost those games, those can be justified because they lost based on trends that have been happening to them pretty much all year, or at least these last couple months. It's very interesting that Iowa State, a top 10 three-point shooting team in the country, lost 2 of their 3 games solely because they went extremely ice cold from 3 out of absolutely nowhere. Why? Why did that happen? I want to focus this segment on Milan Momcilovic, who is having one of the most historic seasons in college basketball we've ever seen. It's a 1-of-1 season. and he's not getting enough attention for it. Milan Momcilovic is shooting 52% from three. That is a real percentage. Now, in college basketball, there are 8 guys shooting over 50% from downtown. You look at all of their three-point attempts per game. Of the 8 guys, I'm going to list them to you. 1.1, 2.4. These are the amount of three-point attempts they're taking per game. 2.8, 2.2, 3.3, 3.1, 3.4. And then there's Milan Momcilovic. 7.5. We've never seen a shooting season like this in the history of college basketball. All those guys that are on that list of top-rated three-point shooters in college basketball are purely catch-and-shoot guys. I don't know if you've watched Milan Momcilovic play and Iowa State play. He looks like Dirk Nowitzki out there. This is not a catch-and-shoot guy. He's hitting these tough turnaround jump shots with guys squarely in his face at the buzzer at the shot clock. And side note, I would be so curious to see what this Iowa State coaching staff did with him in the offseason and his shot release. Who was his trainer? What assistant coach? Because it's not just physical with him. Like, he's always been a good shooter, but it's mental. He's taking some really tough shots, and he is burying them with with guys in his face. I mean, you guys have to go back and watch that. He had a 3 against Kansas on Saturday, and the shot clock was ending, and it was like a turnaround from the corner, and he just buries it with like a centimeter of room from the defender. And he's also shooting 59% from 2 and 90% from the foul line. So he's not just a catch-and-shoot guy. This is a guy that went from, okay, he can shoot if you leave him open type guy, to a first-round pick, maybe lottery type of talent. So here's the crazy part. This is my point. Iowa State is shooting 40% from 3 this year as a team. This is nuts. But only has one player shooting over 40% from 3 and their entire roster. How does that make mathematical sense? So if you take Milan Momcilovic, his production out of the picture, okay, Iowa State is shooting 33% from 3 as a team. They go from 7th in college basketball as a team in three-point percentage to 209th if you just take one guy out. Milan Momcilovic is responsible for 1/3 of Iowa State's three-point attempts and just about half of their makes. So here's the interesting thing. Okay, this is where it gets really, really just... I went down a rabbit hole here. In Iowa State's 2 times this year where they've scored under 70 points, so they're 2 major outlier bad offensive performances for their standards. We're not going to focus on that Cincinnati game because that was more of a defensive collapse when they lost that game. Those 2 games, Milan Momcilovic shot 5 of 16 from 3, 31%. Which 31% for college basketball standards is slightly below average. But for Milan Momcilovic standards, that's like terrible. Absurdly terrible. So basically what I'm saying is if Milan Momcilovic it continues this pace that he's been continuing, and honestly, I wouldn't be shocked if he does, Iowa State is one of the best teams in the nation and can win the whole thing. But if he regresses into not just bad shooter, but shooting normality, the mean of college basketball, Iowa State all of a sudden becomes an extremely one-dimensional offense. And so they don't have the interior scoring that a Michigan or Duke or Arizona has. And so you need the three-point shooting. right, to win the national championship. So I think Iowa State is so interesting to me because they can win the whole thing. You have 3-point shooting, 2-point shooting. You have a point guard that is awesome at controlling the pace and not turning the ball over. You have an amazing defensive coach. You've got a potential NBA lottery pick. They check, box checked, box checked, box checked. Every single box that a national championship team needs to check. Even the KenPom ratings, top 10 in all three of overall, offense, and defense. But I think they could also be a 2 seed that loses to a 15 or doesn't even get out of the first weekend. Because, yeah, on one side they have all those things that I mentioned. But on the other side, if they draw one bad matchup, if they have one guy who is just as lengthy, strong, and physical to guard Milan Momcilovic, or differently, if Milan Momcilovic just shows up to a game ice cold, which, by the way, happens, Iowa State could lose in the first round. So they are the most interesting team in college basketball to me because they check every box to win the whole thing. But also, they're pretty dependent on one guy for an entire dimension of their offense, which makes them extremely volatile.